What's up, everybody? This is going to be a spiritual conversation with the Crown Priestess. These specific messages, when I do spiritual conversations, they are more so to provide insight, enlightenment, information that is designed to assist on divine purpose and direction, okay, more so than anything else. So if you were guided to this video, I pray that the messages are received by you well, that you receive the messages well, that God reaches you in the way that He intended, okay? We are at war, gentlemen, is what I just heard. So, quite right off the bat, right? And I know that if you are into stuff like this, you know that we're at war, like spiritually, right? There are so many texts, religious texts, the Bible being one of them, that speak to war, not of the flesh, but of spiritual nature, more so, yes? So I just heard we are at war, gentlemen. So this is something that is obviously becoming very evident globally on just an everywhere level. You can see it, you can feel it, you're in the middle of it. And it's something that is not to be taken lightly. There are people who are... So, okay, I just heard two things. I heard descendants of the fallen, and I heard descendants of Enoch. I know that a lot of people are not very familiar with the story of Enoch. It is a very old biblical text that was removed and sort of banned from biblical texts for reasons that I can carry on with all day, but I think we all know the real reasons why these things were sort of pushed to the side and tried to ultimately be erased from history. But I won't get into that. They're actually telling me not to get into that too much. Even though I feel like they're driving me towards this story, I won't get into my personal views on it. I'll say that. Okay. But they are, right, descendants of Enoch, descendants of the fallen. So I think the reference here that Spirit is trying to bring across is that there are people who are chosen to do God's work. Yes? Like prophets, seers, things of that nature. These were real things. Enoch was very much that. He was a seer. He was a prophet. He was a very righteous person, and God loved him so much that He spared him the inevitability of death and brought him straight into heaven. He sent angels to this, like, I'll let y'all do your own research, right? But, you know, Enoch was able to see things and enter the levels of heaven, the ascensions of heaven, in a way that no other human being was able to do. And the things he saw, the things he understood were fearful to him at first, but he was accepting of it, and he ultimately became an immortal, an angel in the end, right? So the reason that I think they're drawing me to this, because we are at war, is that although God chose specific people, right? He loved humanity. He created us. He is the creator. And what we have to remember is that we are just His creation, right? We are just creatures. And so we are not equal to God. God is the creator. And so He has the authority to pick and to choose who are for Him and who are His people. But the fallen, specifically the four main fallen angels, there are several, obviously, that were casted out of heaven and followed. But there are four main fallen angels. Everybody knows the most popular one, which is the morning star, Lucifer, right? But he's not the only. There are others that I won't mention their names at this time. I'm being asked not to mention their names at this time. Their names are public record. It's not a secret, so if you feel called to do that research, as well do it. But I'm being told, do not mention these names. There's some that, yeah, okay. Some people are just too susceptible or sensitive to these names being spoken, hence the fallen, descendants of the fallen. So, okay, great. So, moving forward, when the fallen came to earth, when they were cast here, stop! My son is just, he keeps on moving forward. When they were sent here, they did a lot of things that they obviously were not supposed to do, that were against the will of God, and they made a pact, they made a curse, almost like put themselves binded under a curse to stay away from God and do kind of their own thing. And one of the things that one of these fallen, I won't mention his name, don't say his name, okay, he taught man the magic, the divination, the witchcraft, if you will, the hidden knowledge that was outside of humanity, right? Knowledge that chosen people of God were allowed to see and use responsibly, right? Which is why they were chosen by the authority of the divine. This person with the gift of prophecy, this person the gift of tongue, this person the gift of foresight, whatever, right? But this fallen angel taught that to everybody. He brought that knowledge to everybody. And he specifically taught people to use it in a distorted way. And, to harm people, to unalive people, to curse people, to pull greed and power and wealth to them. And you see how it got out of hand. And so that is why, witchcraft, occult, pagan practices, all this stuff is so taboo in so many eyes and to so many religions, because it was not meant to be shared with humanity as a whole. It was not designed for everybody to be able to utilize this utensil, these tools, because in more cases than not, people are not using it responsibly, hence not being chosen by God to have this knowledge, this wisdom, these gifts, and so that is the separation sort of between the good and the evil, and how these things are. And this is why I say all the time, how God have mercy, he have wrath. These fallen, they took that, they almost like they exploited that wrath. They exploited the dark and the unknown, and they taught it to mankind and people who were not supposed to come into contact with this kind of information. You understand? And so we are at war. And so it is very hard to identify who is chosen and who is just a descendant of these fallen and have come into these types of practices, and what they are using this magic and this power and how they are exploiting these talents. Some people are doing the right thing. Some people are leading that righteous path, and others are not. I will say this as well. In the book of Enoch, one of the realms, one of the ascensions of heaven that he touched was split into paradise and what we would describe in the modern day as hell. And in that hell, there were several angels who turned their backs on God, right? I'm saying angels because they're demons now, right? They're demons now because they have turned their back to God. And they were bound there in chains for 70 generations, if I'm correct, until they were to face the judgment of God and ideally be put to the fire, right? It's a lot. This is a big spiritual message. This is a big one, okay? And I'm like, it's a lot going on. So, with this with this good versus evil paradigm, these things are unfolding into our reality right now, onto the earth, because, hello, it's where they were cursed and banished to. And they used the secrets and the wisdom and divine knowledge of God, and they distorted it and gave it to humanity so that humanity may turn their back against God as well. And it's kind of what's happened over time, as we can see very clearly. We got further and further away from that righteous, that divine, that ascending direction, and we have fallen from grace. And now I'm hearing praise become pride. Praise become pride. So for example, religion, I would say, just because it's everybody, this is not an attack on any one practice or any practice at all. I'm not attacking anybody. There's a certain arrogance that comes with feeling chosen and favored by God, right? And so what Spirit is encouraging me to say at this time is that do not forget the first sin against God. It wasn't us. It was the morning star. It was Lucifer, right? It was Satan, the devil, however you refer to this entity. The light bringer, it was his pride. Pride was the sin that casted him away from God and forced him to fall from grace. Because God created him in an image that was the ultimate power, the ultimate beauty, the ultimate art. He created him to be his left hand. But in giving him all of these divine gifts and powers, he began to see himself as equal. And I do believe this somewhere in that Bible. I always forget the verses, but it's been a while, so since I've read. But there is a reference where Michael tells him, we are only creatures, and he is the creator. This might be in a book that was removed, okay? Because I've read both. I've read there are like 14 books missing from the Bible, the modern day Bible. But moving forward, there is such text where Michael is said to have said to Satan in conversation, we are only his creatures, and he is the creator. And so that gives him the authority over you. You are not his equal. You understand? Mind you, Michael, as so depicted, so vastly, recognized in the world, had many of the same gifts, powers, and privileges. Stop! As Lucifer. But he did not exploit these. He did not go against God. He wouldn't even fight someone, or he didn't do anything unless it was commanded by God. You understand? So it goes to show, and that's why he's such a beloved figure, such a beloved angel, because it goes to show that he didn't have to flex. He knows what he's capable of. He has a lot of the same capability and some more than others, other angels and things of that nature. But he did not exploit it, and he did not distort God's ruling, and and the things that God privileged him with knowing and trusted him with. And so I say all of that to say, because they said praise becomes pride, or praise, what was it? Praise becomes pride, or it's like when you see people in religion and they feel better than others, There's this arrogance to them because I know my God and I know this, and that, and because I'm saved and I'm whatever. And it, again, across the board, right? The Jewish, the Muslims, the Christians, to name a few, they fancy themselves the only ones worthy of entering into this ascension process. And so the message here is, do not allow your praise to become pride, because pride is a sin against God. In fact, it was one of the first sins against God, and none other than the most infamous Satan, Lucifer, morning star, was the one who allowed his pride to force God to turn his back on him. There is some sort of, there's a message here about someone exploiting divine secrets. There is a message here of one who is boastful and arrogant and using the Lord's name or the Lord's favor to fancy themselves superior to others. And you see it, right? It's like people, oh, we do this work and we do this work, but they're the same people who like judge somebody who doesn't dress like them, doesn't love like them, doesn't carry themselves in a way that they see fit to their standard, right? And we know that it's not all equal, because if it was, then there wouldn't be so many deviations of the same faction, essentially, right? If this is Christianity, again, these are just examples for these. I'm using what I know. If the umbrella is Christianity, why are there over 4,000 separate deviations of this? You understand what I'm trying to say? And, not for everyone, because they're God's chosen, planted everywhere, all throughout, I promise. But what do you think, ideally, those people went and segregated and said, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're over here and we're over here and we're over, because they have lost their righteous direction. It stopped being about praising God and it started being more about their pride. And God, he's moving and shaking, right? He's having a walkthrough. And there's a lot of shit that he's turning his back to right now. He's forsaking a lot of things and a lot of people. But there's time to redeem yourself, okay? And so let's pull a little bit of something, because that was just all talk. Damn, descendants of Enoch, descendants of the fallen. That's so wild. That was crazy. Okay. Look at the first card out. Can't make the shit up, And it's the first time I look at this tree and it reminds me of the tree of life, the tree of eternal life, which Enoch describes in paradise, in the part of heaven that is designed for the righteous, where he says that God takes rest there often. Like God visits that tree and he will sit there, and it's supposed to pour into like these 4 rivers and then yet separate again into like another 40, and it pours into the earth. And do the research, man, or whatever, pray, meditate. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. and it's described much grander than this, but I just thought about it for this card to come up. Fate, detours, divine intervention. And you see that? That's what I'm seeing with when I said there is redemption in this. There's a story about sirens. So I don't know how real this is yet. I have to meditate deeper on it, but there's a story about how the fallen, I know this part. The fallen mated with human, right? They thought that that women were beautiful, and so they mated with them, and that's how the Nephilim, like the giants, were made and shit like that, right? And these people were cursed essentially because they were seduced by these fallen angels who were no longer a part of God's plan, and so they call it secondhand curse off that. And it said that when God went to flood the world to wash away all this crazy ass shit, right? Story of Noah and the ark and all that jazz. Some of these people descended into the water and became mermaids, became sirens, and their call was beckoning to sailors or people trying to flee to bring them to their death, and etc. And right, that's why people talk about mermaids and sirens and say that they're evil, they're demonic, they're this and this and that, because they were believed in that time to be the wives of the fallen, the women that the fallen seduced and made children with. And so they became mermaids so that they can survive the flood type shit, whatever, right? I'm saying that because, again, I have not done all the research for this. I have not done all the full deep meditation to get these answers, and so I'm just talking right now. But I say all that to say there is redemption for those sirens. Okay, that's the part that I'm saying. I don't know how true this is. There is a spiritual text that states, allegedly, that states that these sirens may receive redemption from God because they were seduced by the fallen. And so I don't know what kind of work they will have to do to redeem themselves, but they are eligible, so to speak, to have the mercy of God, because it wasn't really their fault type shit, I guess, to be seduced by angels, you understand, essentially, like, and be taught all these things, that he who shall not be named, as the avoidance card came out, he who shall not be named, shared with the world. You see this? Look at the cards that just came out here. Avoidance, rebirth, limitations, lack, fear, doubts. And then look at that on the bottom, alchemy. So as there's truth to what I'm saying. There's redemption for these sirens who is seduced by these fallen angels. And so I say that to say that spirit is willing, with divine fate, divine intervention and detours. There is redemption for you. God can choose to have mercy on you. But you have to be willing to do the work, and you have to rebuke all that. You know what you're supposed to rebuke. Okay. Let's get a little advice, extra advice or something, and I'm gonna go. This is a message that is only going to fall on very specific people. But if you're here, it's God giving you that opportunity, whether for yourself or for others. Ancestors are very important right now. Look at this, the star, the moon, the magician. Two things, and there's the judgment card at the bottom. Okay, this is big. Two things. Number one, if you have practiced any malicious act of divination to hurt somebody, to harm somebody, to bind somebody, to unalive somebody, to get something that wasn't yours, take it away from somebody else, all the things that you know are unjust and not righteous, now's the time to stop and pray for your forgiveness. That's number one. Number two, you have a very strong divine presence in your life at this time. Very strong. And this specific entity, it wants you to redeem. It is helping you. It is begging God, in fact, I feel, for your redemption, for your mercy, for your revolution, for something to change drastically in your life. Okay? Not all of you are hell-ridden or, bad people. And so just take the message how it resonates. But if there is something in your life that you are being called to fix it. If there is something that you have done that maybe you got away with for a long time, confess it. If there is something that has burdened you, about anything, let it go. Understand? This is a message of redemption. And it is a message of utilizing God's resources and divine knowledge for righteous purposes. And if you do not know how to do that, the idea is that you probably were not chosen. And if if you do know how to do it, but you've never done it for good and you've only done it for bad, perhaps this is the time where God says, you're going to work for me now. And that's going to look very different. And it's going to be, I'm just going to say hard. But man, that is not doing the word justice. It is going to be hard, but you will redeem yourself and you will work for God, for the Creator, not for His creatures, not for yourself or your own, whatever. This is about working through God, and this is about getting the redemption that is required of you in this lifetime if you expect to ascend to a place that is better than where you are right now. Okay? I'm done. Thank you very much. Love, light, and abundance.